welcome to all of you and to the lovely devotees from here in Houston Yatra that are coming to hear Srimad-Bhagavatam, getting a taste. Morgan came up to me after the birthday party and he came, better listen more. Hare Krishna. That's the power of a transcendental sound. All right. We're reading Srimad-Bhagavatam. We've reached the 16th. Pariksit received the age of Kali.
Maharaj, is the Wi-Fi off?
The Wi-Fi is maybe not. Hold on, little technical adjustment here. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Here, this is our crowd today. You see familiar faces. This is becoming the Hall of Fame for hearing about Krishna here in Houston. Carrie Osteen, hello there. Well, that's Carrie. She's online. You knew. Okay, Hare Krishna, Carrie. Nice to have you aboard. It was lovely to meet you the other day. We look forward to many more in the future. Okay, we made a mistake and we didn't turn off the Wi-Fi, and therefore the broadcast wasn't proper, but now it's on. So we've reached the 16th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, how Pariksit Maharaj received the age of Kali. Pariksit Maharaj was appointed by Maharaj Yudhishthira as the emperor when Maharaj Yudhishthira decided to leave this world after he learned that Krishna had left the world. Because these eternal associates of Krishna, they're so attached to Krishna that wherever he goes, they go. So when he goes, they go. So, before we begin, we'll hear this beautiful prayer glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is deep with meaning and understanding, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees. O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramamanda Pataya, Prema Varshak Sharayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Mando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannishtadaka Madbhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin adini chotata kada hanamuncha gadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So when a Krishna appears on the earth, everything about the atmosphere in the earth, the air, the water, the breeze, the flowers, the people, everyone is in a blissful consciousness. Everything is adjusted so that human life can be performed or lived blissfully. The major miseries are reduced practically to nothing, and in that way the earth becomes very wonderful, especially after Krishna cleans the house and removes the burden of the earth from atheists. So now Pariksit Maharaj has become the king, and he's noticing that there are symptoms coming in. Just like when you spring house clean, and when everything's really clean and everything in its place and neat, one little thing that comes wrong, you can see it immediately. But if you haven't cleaned your room for a year, or dusted it, and you've just thrown things around, I hope nobody lives like that around here. But if you do, then when something comes in different, you can't hardly tell. It's just another thing strewn around the room. So Pariksit Maharaj and the people of the time began to notice things. So he's out and about, trying to see how things are going in his kingdom. Because in those days, the leaders, the kings, especially the emperor, who was the most responsible and representative of God, they knew what to do and what not to do. They knew how things were supposed to be. So he was being very dutiful, and he was going out and checking out the earth. And everywhere he went, he would hear the glories of his forefathers and the previous administration and Lord Krishna and their relationship. So he was very happy. But then he came across a person who looked like a king, but he wasn't really a king. He was dressed up like a king, and he was beating a bull and a cow, who represented, the bull represented religion, and the cow represented Mother Earth. Because the fact is that Mother Earth, in those days, it was just beginning, but now you can see what's happening to Mother Earth. The air is polluted, the water is polluted, the sun sometimes isn't in the sky, and there's so much anxiety all over the world, and such a large percentage of the population don't have proper food to eat. Nowadays in San Francisco, California, even if you have over $100,000 a year, you can't get a house or a place to live, because that's the poverty level. So that's what's going on. There's a few people who are making more and more, and the rest of the people are hardly maintained properly. Hare Krishna Damodar. Haribol. So now, we're in a very interesting section of this chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam. We're hearing a conversation between the personality of religion and Mother Earth. And he's noticing that she doesn't appear properly. Sometimes when you have a friend and they just got out of bed in the wrong side in the morning or whatever, they just had a fight with their dear one or whatever, so they look and their face is not so nice. And you can tell by the face, the index of the mind, and body language. So the pure personality of religion is looking at Dharma, at the earth, and he's saying, what's wrong with you? And then he gives all these possible reasons why you should not look proper and happy. And now she's answering those questions. We're starting in text 34, chapter 16, first canto. Mother Earth is speaking. O personality of religion, I was greatly overburdened by the undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, weakened in your standing strength, and thus he also incarnated by his internal energy in the family of the Yadus to relieve you. Purport. The Asuras want to enjoy a life of sense gratification, even at the cost of others' happiness. In order to fulfill this ambition, the Asuras, especially atheistic kings or state executive heads, try to equip themselves with all kinds of deadly weapons to bring about a war in a peaceful society. They have no ambition other than personal aggrandizement. And thus Mother Earth feels overburdened by such undue increases of military strength. By increase of the Asuric population, those who follow the principles of religion become unhappy, especially the devotees or devas. In such a situation, the personality of Godhead incarnates to vanquish the unwanted asuras and to re-establish the true principles of religion. This was the mission of Lord Sri Krishna, and he fulfilled it. Text 35. Who therefore can tolerate the pangs of separation from that Supreme Personality of Godhead? He could conquer the gravity and passion and passionate wrath of his sweethearts like Satyabhama by his sweet smile of love, pleasing glance, and hearty appeals. When he traversed my earth's surface, I would be immersed in the dust of his lotus feet, and thus would be sumptuously covered with grass, which appeared like hairs standing on me out of pleasure. Purport. There were chances of separation between the Lord and his thousands of queens because of the Lord's being absent from home. But as far as his connection with earth was concerned, the Lord would traverse the earth with his lotus feet, and therefore there was no chance of separation. When the Lord left the surface of the earth to return to his spiritual abode, the earth's feelings of separation were therefore more acute. Text 36. While the earth and the personality of religion were thus engaged in conversation, the saintly king, Pariksit, reached the shore of the Saraswati river, which flowed towards the east. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 16th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled, How Pariksit Received the Age of Kali. And now we'll go on to the 17th chapter, Punishment and Reward of Kali. Text 1. Sutta Goswami said, after reaching that place, Maharaj Pariksit observed that a lower caste Shudra, dressed like a king, was beating a cow and a bull with a club, as if they had no owner. Purport. The principal sign of the age of Kali is that lower caste Shudras, that is, men without Brahminical culture and spiritual initiation, will be dressed like administrators or kings, and the principal business of such non-Kshatriya rulers will be to kill the innocent animals, especially the cows and the bulls, who shall be unprotected by their masters, the bona fide Vaishyas, the mercantile community. In the Bhagavad Gita, 1844, it is said that the Vaishyas are meant to deal in agriculture, cow protection, and trade. In the age of Kali, the degraded Vaishyas, the mercantile men, are engaged in supplying cows to slaughterhouses. The Kshatriyas are meant to protect the citizens of the state, whereas the Vaishyas are meant to protect the cows and bulls and utilize them to produce grains and milk. The cow is meant to deliver milk, and the bull is meant to produce grains. But in the age of Kali, the Shudra class of men are in the post of administrators, and the cows and bulls, or the mothers and the fathers, unprotected by the Vaishyas, are subjected to the slaughterhouses organized by the Shudra administrators. Text 2. The bull was as white as a lotus flower. He was terrified of the Shudra who was beating him, and he was so afraid that he was standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. Purport. The next symptom of the age of Kali is that principles of religion, which are all spotlessly white, like the white lotus flower, will be attacked by the uncultured Shudra population of the age. They may be descendants of Brahmana or Kshatriya forefathers, but in the age of Kali, for want of sufficient education and culture of Vedic wisdom, Such a Shudra-like population will defy the principles of religion, and persons who are religiously endowed will be terrified by such men. They will declare themselves as adherents of no religious principles, and many isms and cults will spring up in Kali Yuga only to kill the spotless bull of religion. The state will be declared to be secular, or without any particular principle of religion, and as a result, there will be total indifference to the principles of religion. The citizens will be free to act as they like, without respect for sadhu, shastra, and guru. The bull standing on one leg indicates that the principles of religion are gradually diminishing. Even the fragmental existence of religious principles will be embarrassed by so many obstacles, as if in the trembling condition of falling down at any time. Text 3. Although the cow is beneficial because one can draw religious principles from her, she was now rendered poor and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Shudra. There were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Purport. The next symptom of the age of Kali is the distressed condition of the cow. Milking the cow means drawing the principles of religion in liquid form. The great rishis and munis would live only on milk. Srila Shukadeva Goswami would go to a householder while he was milking a cow, and he would simply take a little quantity of it for subsistence. Even 50 years ago, no one would deprive a sadhu of a quart or two of milk, and every householder would give milk like water. For a Sanatanist, a follower of Vedic principles, it is the duty of every householder to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia, not only for drinking milk, but also for deriving religious principles. The Sanatanist worships cows on religious principles and respects brahmanas. The cow's milk is required for the sacrificial fire, and by performing sacrifices, the householder can be happy. The cow's calf not only is beautiful to look at, but also gives satisfaction to the cow, and so she delivers as much milk as possible. But in the Kali Yuga, the calves are separated from the cows as early as possible, for purposes which may not be mentioned in these pages of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The cow stands with tears in her eyes. The Shudra milkman draws milk from the cow artificially, and when there is no milk, the cow is sent to be slaughtered. These greatly sinful acts are responsible for all the troubles in present society. People do not know what they are doing in the name of economic development. The influence of Kali will keep them in the darkness of ignorance. Despite all endeavors for peace and prosperity, they must try to see the cows and bulls happy in all respects. Foolish people do not know how one earns happiness by making the cows and bulls happy, but it is a fact by the law of nature. Let us take it from the authority of Srimad-Bhagavatam and adopt the principles for the total happiness of humanity. Text 4. Maharaj Pariksit, well equipped with arrows and bow and seated on a gold-embossed chariot, spoke to him, the Shudra, with a deep voice sounding like thunder. Purport. An administrative head or king, like Maharaj Pariksit, is full with majestic authority, well equipped with weapons to chastise miscreants, can challenge the agents of the age of Kali. Then only will it be possible to counteract the degraded age. And in the absence of such strong executive heads, there is always disruption of tranquility. The elected show bottle executive head, as representative of a dreaded public, degraded public, cannot be equal with a strong king like Maharaj Pariksit. The dress or style of royal order does not count. It is one's actions which are counted. Just for a little bit of information, they did an interview of the voters, the people who voted for Trump, and they asked them, doesn't it make any difference that every day he's lying? He said, no, it doesn't make any difference. And one of the biggest lawyers in the country said, nowadays, truth isn't truth. This is the condition. It's come to that. It's actually come to that, where people are actually forgotten completely what the qualities of truthfulness are, or what truth is. So how can we expect, peaceful life, peaceful population? Text 5. Oh, who are you? You appear to be strong, and yet you dare to kill within my jurisdiction those who are helpless. By your dress you pose yourself to be a godly man, king, but by your deeds you are opposing the principles of the twice-born Kshatriyas. Purport. The Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are all called twice-born because for these higher classes of men there is one birth by parental conjugation, and there is another birth of cultural rejuvenation by spiritual initiation, from the bona fide acharya or spiritual master. So a Kshatriya is also twice born, like the Brahmana, and his duty is to give protection to the helpless. The Kshatriya king is considered to be the representative of God, to give protection to the helpless and chastise the miscreants. Whenever there are anomalies in this routine work by the administrators, there is an incarnation of the Lord to re-establish the principles of a godly kingdom. In the age of Kali, the poor helpless animals, especially the cows, which are meant to receive all sorts of protection from the administrative heads, are killed without restriction. Thus the administrative heads, under whose noses such things happen, are representatives of God in name only. Such powerful administrators are rulers of the poor citizens by dress or office, but factually they are worthless, lower class men, without the cultural assets of the twice born. No one can expect justice or equality of treatment from once born, spiritually uncultured, lower class men. Therefore, in the age of Kali, everyone is unhappy due to the maladministration of the state. The modern human society is not twice born by spiritual culture. Therefore, the people's government by the people who are not twice born must be a government of Kali in which everyone is unhappy. Text 6. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow because Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the carrier of the Gandiva bow, are out of sight? Since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. Purport. In a civilization where God is conspicuously banished, there is no devotee warrior like Arjuna. The associates of the age of Kali take advantage of this lawless kingdom and arrange to kill innocent animals like the cow in secluded slaughterhouses. Such murderers of animals stand to be condemned to death by the order of a pious king like Maharaj Pariksit. For a pious king, the culprit who kills an animal in a secluded place is punishable by the death penalty, exactly like a murderer who kills an innocent child in a secluded place. Text 7. Then he, Maharaj Pariksit, asked the bull, "Oh, who are you? Are you a bull as white lotus? Or are you a demigod? You have lost 3 of your legs and are moving on one only. Are you some demigod causing us grief in the form of a bull?" Purport. At least up to the time of Maharaj Pariksit, no one could imagine the wretched condition of the cow, conditions of the cow and the bull. Maharaj Pariksit therefore was astonished to see such a horrible scene. He inquired whether the bull was not a demigod, assuming such a wretched condition to indicate the future of the cow and the bull. Text 8. Now for the first time in a kingdom well protected by the arms of the kings of the Kuru dynasty, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. Up till now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. Purport. The protection of the lives of both the human beings and the animals is the first and foremost duty of a government. A government must not discriminate in such principles. It is simply horrible for a pure-hearted soul to see organized animal killing by the state in this age of Kali. Maharaj Pariksit was lamenting for the tears in the eyes of the bull, and he was astonished to see such an unprecedented thing in his good kingdom. Men and animals were equally protected as far as life was concerned. That is the way in God's kingdom. Text 9. O son of Surabhi, you need not lament. You need lament no longer now. There is no need to fear this low-class Shudra. And O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious men, the conch of Kali Yuga. Calling us all, come consume all the goods on this train. They call you, of course you'll have to go 1,000 miles down the road because that's where it's going to end up. O son of Surabhi, you need lament no longer now. There is no need to fear this low-class Shudra. And O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious men, there is no cause for you to cry. Everything will be good for you. Purport. Protection of bulls and cows and all other animals can be possible only when there is a state ruled by an executive head like Maharaj Pariksit. Maharaj Pariksit addresses the cow as mother, for he is a cultured, twice-born Kshatriya king. Surabhi is the name of the cows which exist in the spiritual planets and are especially reared by Lord Sri Krishna himself. As men are made after the form and features of the Supreme Lord, so also the cows are made after the form and features of the Surabhi cows in the spiritual kingdom. In the material world, the human society gives all protection to the human being, but there is no law to protect the descendants of Surabhi, who can give all protection to men by supplying the miracle food, milk. But Maharaj Pariksit and the Pandavas were fully conscious of the importance of the cow and bull, and they were prepared to punish the cow killer with all chastisement, including death. There has sometimes been agitation for the protection of the cow, but for want of pious executive heads and suitable laws, the cows and the bull are not given protection. The human society should recognize the importance of the cow and the bull, and thus give all protection to these important animals, following in the footsteps of Maharaj Pariksit. For protecting the cows in Brahminical culture, the Lord, who is very kind to the cow and the Brahmanas, Go Brahmana Hitaya, will be pleased with us and will bestow upon us real peace. Text 10 and 11. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in the kingdom. in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore I must kill this most wretched man, because he is violent against other living beings. Purport. When there is some disturbance caused by wild animals in a village or town, the police or others take action to kill them. Similarly, it is the duty of the government to kill at once all bad social elements such as thieves, dacoits, and murderers. The same punishment is also due to animal killers, because the animals of the state are also the praja. Praja means one who has taken birth in the state, and this includes both men and animals. Any living being who takes birth in a state has the primary right to live under the protection of the king. The jungle animals are also subject to the king, and they also have a right to live. What to speak of domestic animals like the cows and bulls? Any living being, if he terrifies other living beings, is a most wretched subject, and the king should at once kill such a disturbing element. As the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances, similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. By the law of the Supreme Lord, all living beings, in whatever shape they may be, are the sons of the Lord, and no one has any right to kill another animal, unless it is so ordered by the codes of natural law. The tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God, who has created the law that a living being subsists by eating another living being. Thus the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. The Ishopanishad directs that one should live by the direction of the Lord, and not at one's sweet will. A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits, and milk ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food, save and except in particular cases. The illusioned king or executive head, even though sometimes advertised as a great philosopher and learned scholar, will allow slaughterhouses in the state without knowing that torturing poor animals clears the way to hell for such foolish kings or executive heads. The executive head must always be alert to the safety of the prajas, both man and animal, and inquire whether a particular living being is harassed at any place by another living being. The harassing living being must at once be caught and put to death, as shown by Maharaj Pariksit. The people's government, or government by the people, should not allow killing of innocent animals by the sweet will of foolish government men. They must know the codes of God as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Maharaj Pariksit quotes here that according to the codes of God, the irresponsible king or state executive jeopardizes his good name, duration of life, power and strength, and ultimately his progressive march towards a better life and salvation after death. Such foolish men do not even believe in the existence of a next life. While commenting on this particular verse, we have in our presence the statement of a great modern politician who has recently died and left his will, which discloses his poor fund of knowledge of the codes of God mentioned by Maharaj Pariksit. The politician was so ignorant of the codes of God that he writes, "I do not believe in such ceremonies, and to submit to them, even as a matter of form, would be hypocrisy and an attempt to delude ourselves and others. I have no religious sentiment in the matter." Contrasting these statements of a great politician in the modern age with those of Maharaj Pariksit, we find a vast difference. Maharaj Pariksit was pious according to the scriptural codes, whereas the modern politician goes by his personal belief and sentiments. Any great man of the material world is, after all, a conditioned soul. He is bound by his hands and feet by the ropes of material nature, and still the foolish conditioned soul thinks of himself as free to act by his whimsical sentiments. The conclusion is that people in the time of Maharaj Pariksit were happy, and the animals were given proper protection because the executive head was not whimsical or ignorant of God's law. Foolish, faithless creatures tried to avoid the existence of God and proclaimed themselves secular at the cost of valuable human life. The human being is especially meant for knowing the science of God, but foolish creatures, especially in this age of Kali, instead of knowing God scientifically, makes propaganda against religious belief as well as the existence of God, even though they are always bound by the laws of God, by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. Text 12. He, Maharaj Pariksit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus: O son of Surabhi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. Purport. The kings, or the executive heads of all states, must know the codes of Lord Krishna, generally Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, and must act accordingly in order to fulfill the mission of human life, which is to make an end to all miseries of material conditions. One who knows the codes of Lord Krishna can achieve this end without any difficulty. In the Bhagavad Gita, in a synopsis, we can understand the codes of Godhead, and in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the same codes are explained further. In a state where the codes of Krishna are followed, no one is unhappy. Where such codes are not followed, the first sign is that 3 legs of the representative of religion are cut off, and thereby all miseries follow. When Krishna was personally present, the codes of Krishna were being followed without question. But in his absence, such codes are presented in the pages of Srimad-Bhagavatam for the guidance of the blind persons who happen to be at the helm of all affairs. Text 13. O bull, you are offenseless and thoroughly honest. Therefore I wish all good to you. Please tell me of the perpetrator of these mutilations, which blackmail the reputation of the sons of Pritha. Purport. The reputation of the reign of Maharaj Ramachandra and that of the kings who followed in the footsteps of Maharaj Ramachandra, like the Pandavas and their descendants, are never to be forgotten because in their kingdom offenseless and honest living beings were never in trouble. The bull and the cow are the symbols of the most offenseless living beings, because even the stool and urine of these animals are utilized to benefit human society. The descendants of the sons of Pritha, like Maharaj Pariksit, were afraid of losing their reputations, but in the modern days, the leaders are not even afraid of killing such offenseless animals. Herein lies the difference between the reign of those pious kings and the modern states ruled by irresponsible executive heads without knowledge of the codes of God. Text 14. Whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere in the world. By curbing dishonest miscreants, one automatically benefits the offenseless. Purport. Dishonest miscreants flourish because of cowardly and impotent executive heads of state. But when the executive heads are strong enough to curb all sorts of dishonest miscreants in any part of the state, certainly they cannot flourish. When the miscreants are punished in an exemplary manner, automatically all good fortune follows. As said before, it is the prime duty of the king or the executive head to give protection in all respects to the peaceful, offenseless citizens of the state. The devotees of the Lord are by nature peaceful and offenseless, and therefore it is the prime duty of the state to arrange to convert everyone to become a devotee of the Lord. Thus, automatically, there will be peaceful, offenseless citizens. Then the only duty of the king will be to curb the dishonest miscreants. That will bring about peace and harmony all over human society. It's amazing how precise this is. And now we see in every headline of every newspaper all over the world, the so-called executive heads, they're not only not dealing or punishing the miscreants, they're bringing them close to them, and they're becoming their advisors, and it's all collusion and allies for just collecting more and more resources and let the people go to hell. They don't care at all. It cannot go on like this. By the laws of nature, it cannot go on like this. Therefore, we must distribute this Srimad-Bhagavatam, which so clearly defines the problem and the solution to the problems. And even if we can't, defeat or fight with the forces of evil that are now very strong in the world, we can, within our own ranks, within our own lives, personal lives, live according to these principles, and it will spread. We will be beacons of light, and gradually the light will spread. Okay. Hare Krishna, Doctor. Hari Balab ki jai ho. Hare Krishna. So nice to see you. Text 15. You'd be very happy to hear these purports we just heard, but anyway, I'm not going to repeat them for you. You'll have to read them as homework. I'll give you a test next time. Text 15. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me. This is Maharaj Pariksit speaking to the bull in religion. He's speaking to Kali. He's speaking to Kali. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he be a denizen of heaven with armor and decorations. Purport. The denizens of the heavenly kingdom are called amara, or deathless, due to their possessing a long lifespan of life, far greater than that of the human beings. For a human being who has only a maximum 100-year duration of life, a span of life spreading over millions of years is certainly considered to be deathless. For example, from the Bhagavad Gita we learn that on the Brahmaloka planet, the duration of one day is calculated to be 4,300,000 times 1,000 solar years. Similarly, in other heavenly planets, one day is calculated to be 6 months of this planet, and the inhabitants get a life of 10 million of their years. Therefore, in all the higher planets, since the span of life is far greater than that of the human being, the denizens are called deathless by imagination, although actually no one within the material universe is deathless. Maharaj Pariksit challenges even such denizens of heaven if they torture the offenseless. This means that the state executive head must be as strong as Maharaj Pariksit, so that he may be determined to punish the strongest offenders. It should be the principle of a state executive head that the offender of the codes of God is always punished. Text 16. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding citizens and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. Purport. In the scriptures, there is mention of apad dharma, or occupational duty at times of extraordinary happenings. It is said that sometimes the great sage Vishwamrita had to live on the flesh of dogs in some extraordinary, dangerous position. In cases of emergency, one may be allowed to live on the flesh of animals of all description, but that does not mean that there should be regular slaughterhouses to feed the animal eaters, and that this system should be encouraged by the state. No one should try to live on flesh in ordinary times simply for the sake of the palate. If anyone does so, the king or the executive head should punish him for gross enjoyment. We can shut this door, I think, because the noise is distracting. Thank you. Yeah, that's better. There are regular scriptural injunctions for different persons engaged in different occupational duties, and one who follows them is called swadharmasta, or faithful in one's prescribed duties. In the Bhagavad Gita 18:48, it is advised that one should not give up his occupational prescribed duties, even if they are not always flawless. Such swadharma might be violated in cases of emergency if one is forced by circumstances, but they cannot be violated in ordinary times. The state executive head is to see that such swadharma is not changed by the follower, whatever it may be, and he should give all protection to the follower of swadharma. The violator is subject to punishment in terms of the Shastra, and the duty of the king is to see that everyone strictly follows his occupational duty as prescribed in the scripture. Text 17. The personality of religion said, These words just spoken by you befit a person of the Pandava dynasty. Captivated by the devotional qualities of the Pandavas, even Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. Purport. The assurances and challenges made by Maharaj Pariksit are never exaggerations of his real power. The Maharaj said that even the denizens of heaven could not escape his stringent government if they were violators of religious principles. He was not falsely proud, for a devotee of the Lord is equally as powerful as the Lord, or sometimes more powerful by his grace. And any promise made by a devotee, though it may be ordinarily very difficult to fulfill, is properly executed by the grace of the Lord. The Pandavas, by their unalloyed devotional service and full surrender unto the Lord, made it possible for the Lord to become a chariot driver, or sometimes their letter messenger. Such duties executed by the Lord for his devotee are always very pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord wants to render service to his unalloyed devotee, whose life has no other engagement than to serve the Lord with full love and devotion. I'll read that again. The Pandavas, by their unalloyed devotional service and full surrender unto the Lord, made it possible for the Lord to become a chariot driver, or sometimes their letter messenger. Such duties executed by the Lord for his devotee are always very pleasing to the Lord, because the Lord wants to render service to his unalloyed devotee, whose life has no other engagement than to serve the Lord with full love and devotion. Maharaj Pariksit, grandson of Arjuna, the celebrated friendly servitor of the Lord, was a pure devotee of the Lord like his grandfather, and therefore the Lord was always with him. even from the time when he was helplessly lying in the womb of his mother and was attacked by the blazing Brahmastra weapon of Ashwatthama. A devotee is always under the protection of the Lord, and therefore the assurance of protection by Maharaj Pariksit could never be without meaning. The personality of religion accepted this fact, and thus thanked the king for his being true to his exalted position. Text 18. O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. Purport. There are many theoretical philosophers in the world who put forward their own theories of cause and effect, especially about the cause of suffering and its effect on different living beings. Generally, there are 6 great philosophers: Kanada, the author of Vaisheshika philosophy; Gautama, the author of logic; Patanjali, the author of mystic yoga; Kapila, the author of Sankhya philosophy; Jaimini, the author of Karma Mimamsa; and Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Darshana. Although the bull, or the personality of religion, and the cow, the personality of the earth, knew perfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their sufferings, still, as devotees of the Lord, they knew well also that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. Very important. Listen up, I'm going to read that again. Although the bull, or the personality of religion, and the cow, the personality of earth, knew perfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their sufferings, still, as devotees of the Lord, they knew well also that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. You want to live peacefully in this world? Think like that. According to the Padma Purana, our present trouble is due to the fructifying of seedling sins. But even those seedling sins also gradually fade away by execution of pure devotional service. Thus, even if the devotees see the mischief mongers, they do not accuse them for the sufferings inflicted. They take it for granted that the mischief monger is made to act by some indirect cause, and therefore they tolerate the sufferings, thinking them to be God-given in small doses. For otherwise, the sufferings should have been greater. Maharaj Pariksit wanted to get a statement of accusation against the direct mischief monger, but they declined to give it on the above-mentioned grounds. Speculative philosophers, however, do not recognize the sanction of the Lord. They try to find out the cause of sufferings in their own way, as will be described in the following verses. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, such speculators are themselves bewildered, and thus they cannot know that the ultimate cause of all causes is the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. So we will stop here, because this is we're right now at the point where this philosophy is going to get very deep, and we might want to carefully hear the next few verses and their purports. All right, so we've come to the point of reflection. So now we should use our good intelligence that Krishna gave us and try to understand what we just heard. Yes, Hannah.
Can you elaborate on this?
Can I elaborate on?
Yes, I'm going to read it.
Go ahead.
In a civilization where God is conspicuously banished, just that part.
Well, I mean, in most parts of the world, even the so-called religions don't accept the form of God. And not only do they not accept the form of God, if you try to, fashion a form of God after the revealed scriptures, they'll kill you for it. That's conspicuously banished. Their conspicuously banishing means that the persons who are hell-bent on secular state thinks that means the state should not be religious. Or if they do think they should be religious, then they make up the principles themselves rather than follow their own scriptures,
Why do they make it?
whatever they happen to be. Because they want to do what they want. They want to exploit, they want to take advantage of the laws of God for their own personal aggrandizement and their own selfish interests and personal sense gratification and the gratification of their immediate family and immediate, group of whatever actors or parties, of political parties or whatever.
Like North Korea.
Say that again?
Like North Korea.
Like North Korea, yeah. And many other places, like America. Oops. Yes.
A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits, and milk ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food, save and except in particular cases. In the Bible, Jesus ate fish, but he also said, "Thou shalt not kill," and so today...
That's what you were taught.
But it says it in the Bible. Right?
It doesn't say in the Bible. If you read the original Aramaic of the Bible, you'll see that what he produced was a kind of bread made from plants in the desert which resembled fish.
The manna?
That's actually what it was.
So even I think it was just one...
There's a book that you can get. It was a little pamphlet done by one of our devotee authors, and he researched very thoroughly about this, and he's also a religious scholar. And he found so many things, and he titled it, "You mean this is in the Bible?" with a question mark. You should study that. It puts it all together. I don't have time now to go into the details, but there's many things like that in the Bible. Yes, doctor.
I want to read something after everybody finishes their questions.
Really? Really? You want to make a proclamation, or?
No. Something interesting came up, so I thought.
Oh, something interesting came up.
Yes.
Well, please, bring it up. Let me see. We have.
Everybody finished? Okay.
Well, it's 7:32. We still have some time. Yes, Hannah. She's like a question machine. You just put a nickel in here, and questions come out, or reflections come out.
How is the soul born into an animal body as karma for taking life of another animal if at the time of death they think of a family member or a spouse?
The laws of karma are so complex, it's not possible to understand them in such a simple black and white way. Because the karma of each individual soul is practically unlimited. So to work out why one thing particular happened or another is impossible, actually. It's not possible. It's been going on for too long, and we've done too many things that deserve so many things. So therefore, we need to understand the principles and not a particular situation, of why this should happen to this particular person, or that should happen to that group of particular persons, or like that. But it's a fact that, one point that you brought up, and I don't know if this is what he wants to bring up, the momentous conclusion to this whole discussion our doctor is going to bring out in a minute. But if you happen to take birth in the North Pole or close to in that region, there's no vegetation, so they have to eat fish or have to eat whale blubber or some other animal that can live up there in animals. There is no vegetation. So that's what it means by, special situations where there is no. So even if you accept the argument, that Jesus ate fish, he was in the desert, and perhaps there was nothing else to eat. He was converting fishermen. Perhaps I'm not. We still have that evidence that you should look. Actually, you could. This is your homework. You get that book, you look it up, and then bring it back, and you give the actual words of the Aramaic that mean that, and you can enlighten us like that. Okay? Homework.
Wait, one more thing.
What?
One more thing based on like that. So I think it's the Bhagavad Gita, it says that if you kill a cow, for every hair on that cow, that's how many births you take in the same situation as that cow.
Yes.
So, but what if that person that killed the cow didn't think of killing that cow at the time of death? So that's my main question. Is what we think of at the time of death really what happens where we go?
Yes.
So how does that work?
It works in the same way I just said. You're asking the same question, I'm answering it again. Because there's so much sinful activity going on, the animals don't get reactions for killing one another. Yeah. Just like when you put a sign out, don't step on the grass, don't walk on the grass, and then a cat or dog comes and walks on the grass, you don't arrest the cat or the dog. It's not meant for him. That law is not meant for him. So when living beings have been in all the different species of life, another aspect of this question, or another seemingly unfair analysis, or analysis that makes it seemingly unfair that a person just killing one cow would have to come back the number of hairs on the cow's body in order to, but that does not take into consideration the relationship of eternal time to material time, of past, present, and future. Because, the number of hairs on the body of a cow, there's 311 trillion years of the duration of this universe. That's the duration of time of the whole universe, the lifetime of Brahma. And that amount of time is one out-breath of Lord Vishnu, who created the material world. So 311 trillion years is the amount of time it takes for Lord Vishnu to breathe out and breathe in. So what is time? We're thinking time is, we're thinking in terms of like a spot life. 100 years in the Kali Yuga it's not even a blink of an eye for Vishnu or for Krishna. So we're thinking these things are so horrible and we're going through so much suffering, but actually it's just and how many lifetimes we may take, in that breath is inconceivable. So we're trying to, I don't know what, accuse God of the laws of nature, because how can that be? This is so unfair. Innocent people are suffering and all these different things. How can bad things happen to good people? But our vision is like, we're trying to understand the universe by looking through a straw. The amount we can see through the straw, and we're looking at the universe like this. And that's what even the biggest astronomers, they have these huge telescopes now, but compared to what the whole universe is, at any time they can only look at a little section of it. It's true that they're putting together maps of it, and that's okay, and they may be correct to a certain extent or to a certain degree, but still, to understand the laws of nature, the karmic laws that govern each one of us as individuals, it is beyond calculation. It's not possible to understand that. So if the mind needs to have that answer, that question answered in order to be peaceful and accept God's laws and follow them, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble, because it's not possible. Therefore, the better part of valor, is to accept the Vedas as they are. And when we hear that statement, when we hear the statements of, what Krishna did while he was on the earth, the number of personalities that were guarding, the great kings of those age in that time, when he brings the spiritual world with him, and what will fit inside the spiritual world? Everything. And yet it's within 64, square, in our dimension, we are prisoners. We can only see 3 dimensions, and there's Krishna is infinite dimensional. He's infinite dimensional. That means, how do we determine dimension? Space, the relationship of space, the relationship of a form in space to another form in space. We calculate it in terms of the distance in between those things. Like, we're this far apart, and if you were to go far enough away, I couldn't see you anymore. So Krishna, he's in every single atom of every universe fully. That means every single atom in every single atom is Krishna fully, which means all the universes are in each atom fully. So the point is that we need our consciousness and our understanding to be expanded by hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam all the way through many times. I mean, even Lord Brahma read it 3 times, studied it 3 times before he came to his conclusion. So, even though we have a limited degree of ability to understand, if we sincerely hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a representative of Krishna, which is Krishna himself, personally, incarnation of Krishna personally, literary incarnation, then he will give us intelligence to understand these things and not be bothered if they don't meet our conditions of our speculative reasoning. Something?
Reflection.
Yes. We have a reflection from Jai Shri, Devi Dasi.
Actually, I was really impressed by the purport in the last verse in red, 18. Although the bull or the personality of religion and God, the personality of the earth, knew imperfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their suffering, still as devotees of the Lord, they knew well also that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. And according to Purana, our present trouble is due to putrefying of seedling sins. But even these seedling sins also gradually fade away by execution of pure devotional service. And at the end, he also said they take it for granted that the mischief monger is made to act by some indirect cause, and therefore they tolerate the suffering, thinking them to be God-given in small doses, for otherwise the suffering should have been greater. That's really due.
Well, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
We're going to find out in a few verses that even that can't be a reason.
Yeah, and with this mentality, we can tolerate all the sufferings.
Yes,
yeah.
You can live in the world.
Yeah. Otherwise, just not possible.
Exactly.
So much suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah. We can't change.
Or at least we can live in a way that we won't increase the suffering of others.
Yeah. And we can't change the sufferings. We can just change the attitude of accepting it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So Maharaj, in this verse they explain about the 6 different philosophers. So we are not following all these 6.
Vedavyas.
We follow the Vedavyas and Kapila, Sankirtan.
Yeah. But there's an atheistic Kapila that's not the son of Devahuti, who propounded a atheistic Sankhya philosophy.
So this is the same Kapila?
No.
No, different.
Yeah.
And We follow Patanjali, the author of mystic yoga.
Yeah, but we don't follow Patanjali mystic
We
yoga.
follow the Vyasadeva.
Vyasadeva.
Vedanta Dasa.
Yeah.
Maharaj, there's a couple of questions.
We have a couple of questions from cyberspace.
Ram Das asks, Dear Maharaj, as you are reading about the royal monarch system being guided by the laws of God, and we are following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, which is supposed to rule the world for the next 10,000 years, is it described in our Shastra what the governing authority system for humanity will be?
No, it doesn't say. It doesn't say that the Krishna consciousness movement will rule the world for 10,000 years. That's not true. The Krishna consciousness movement will gradually expand until it is very influential. But the point is that we aren't interested in being rulers of the world. We're interested in advising the rulers of the world. So our duty is to make the rulers of the world, or at least somebody who can rise to that position, devotees of the Lord. So it's not that the Krishna consciousness movement will rule the world for 10,000 years. That's not a fact. If we think that, then we'll look at what's going on and then we'll doubt. We'll have a doubt, and then we will lose our faith. And we won't be able to follow the authority of the Vedas. See, we'll learn in this section, we're just getting into this section as Jayashree was mentioning. This is a very deep philosophy here, and it means that we don't blame anyone, even Krishna. Because, in the Bhagavad Gita there's a verse that says that the living beings are responsible for the happiness and distress in this world. Because we choose, we have individual will, and we can choose to do the right thing or not, or do the wrong thing. When we become so entangled that we lose track of what's right and wrong, that's another situation. Then we become an animal, or an animal-like human being. So the governing principle will be, both will go on at the same time. The demoniac rulers will still be there, the devotees will increase in number, and there will be more and more places where devotees are following the principles, and there'll be a clash at some point. Prabhupada indicated it's possible, but he never gave us any of the details. But the details are given at the very end of the Kali Yuga, and that's 427,000 years from now. At that time, there will only be a few devotees left, but there are devotees left. It's not that there won't be any devotees left. And then Kalki comes and destroys the demoniac elements, just like Krishna did, only on a bigger scale, because this is the whole earth, even on a bigger scale than Krishna did. And then those who are still living after that, they let the earth heal. Just like I have this, break in my arm, and it's amazing how it looked when I first got this injury and how it looks now. Just by time, the thing is healing. And that is the nature, that's the law of nature. We want to criticize God and complain, when in fact God gave us this world and a body that heals itself if you just leave it alone. Of course, that doesn't mean that we don't have medicine, we don't do things to try to help relieve the suffering and disease. We accept that for purposes of health, for devotional service. But it's a fact that the Ayurvedic system is more about preventing, the disease rather than, curing the extremity of diseases that are present now. There wasn't a need for so many hospitals before in the Vedic age. So all of these things, they're created by us, and yet we're trying to figure out how to justify that it's unfair, so that we don't have to, submit to the laws of nature eventually, in order to be able to, to go back to spiritual world and relieve ourselves from these anomalies of Kali Yuga. What was that statement we read the other night? in the 31st chapter of the Gita. I mean, 3rd chapter of the Gita, 31st verse, I think it was. Do we have a Gita? Anybody?
It's not there.
Oh, I gave it away. I gave it to Carrie. Huh? What? Well, we can. She's looking it up already. It's Gita 3:31, purport. Here, let me read it. Yeah, thanks. Old man needs big letters. Oh, Krishna. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. So what is the meat of that resentment?
Ego.
Oh, there it is. Yes. Old man means big letter that stays in one place. That does not.
There's actually an option for that.
There's a what?
There's an option for that.
Option for what? This? Yeah, I know. You can make it stay without. Yeah, I know. Okay. Old man knows option. So the word here, the key word here is resentment. Because one is not resentful of the principle, what does that mean? It means that you have to follow strictly, and you can't follow now. So to become not resentful means I'm not feeling resentful of the person who makes it such that I have to follow eventually, even though I can't follow it now. And then I can live with hope. And now we're going to have our Siddhantawala, Dr. Pokala, otherwise known as Hari Balam, the all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Hari Balam, Hare Krishna.
This evening my son texted me something, it sounded interesting.
This morning his son texted him, this evening his son texted him something interesting, which he wants to share with us.
Yeah, well, I was very hesitant because I was already late when I started. So because of this text I thought at least it's interesting to and you may give some commentary on this.
This sounds like a challenge. That's why I wait. That's why.
No, it's not.
That's why I waited right until the end. We're already at 7:52. Oh my God! You know I have to get up at 2:00. Did you know that?
I'll read it as fast as I can.
Make it quick. How long is it?
Not very long.
Okay. How much is very long?
A few minutes.
Oh, a few minutes. I see. Shall we keep asking? Go ahead.
Newly unearthed journals reveal J. Robert Oppenheimer annoyed Trinity test researchers by quoting Bhagavad Gita every time they did anything. So, Los Alamos, New Mexico, granting researchers meaningful insights into the work environment of the top secret Manhattan Project nuclear program. A set of newly unearthed journals reveal theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer annoyed his fellow scientists during Trinity tests by quoting the Bhagavad Gita every time they did anything. At first I thought it was rather engaging how Mr. Oppenheimer was able to recite so many verses from memory and ruminating upon the concept of dharma as quite interesting for a little while. But we got some rather long days at the primary site, and when one is attempting to calculate precisely the exclusive energy of a nuclear weapon, all attention must be brought to bear on one's side rule, and that gets old. the recently discovered journals of fellow researcher Werner Bush read in part, revealing that Oppenheimer subjected military personnel, his fellow scientists, the carpenters constructing the test ban, and anyone else who would listen to hours of incessant babbling about the sacred Hindu texts. Even during the meals, while we made small talk and attempted to acquaint ourselves with each other,
Oppenheimer was brainwashing his scientists.
Yeah, Robert would quite simply not shut up about Krishna and Arjuna. I'll admit a chill went through me and when he made his pronouncement directly following the explosion. But for days and weeks afterwards, we would make plans for lunch, and from nowhere he would declaim, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. And honestly, how can you enjoy a sandwich while sitting across from a man like that? Does he even know how significant the verse is? The journal entities also reveal that the Trinity test could have been conducted in only a few days, and had it not been for the time Oppenheimer quoted all 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, while distracted technicians attempted to assemble the device's core.
Wow.
So whose translation was he reading?
I don't know.
Exactly.
No, he was reading the verses.
No, I know, but whose translation of the verses? We don't know.
No, we don't know.
And therefore, we don't put any credence to this whatsoever, because there's a whole bunch of persons, who translate, listen, but there are all kinds of persons who translate the Gita with an impersonal conclusion, and they accept that God is like an atomic explosion or energy, the ultimate energy, which he is, but, we don't want to bring that, as an evidence into this arena. But we do accept in principle what you're saying, that it's wonderful that the Bhagavad Gita verses would even enter into that sphere. But, if they were really understanding, if he really understood the Bhagavad Gita, then why would he do it? Why would he make such a horrible... That's Ugra Karma. Yeah. It's right in the 16th chapter of the Gita. So when they got to the 16th chapter, they should have stopped. As soon as they got to the verse Ugra Karma, they should have reconsidered. Anyway, maybe that's why he was trying to, rationalize everybody's brain, because then when it went off and that many people were killed, they could somehow or other rationalize it. Maybe they were doing God's work.
I understand that he
You asked me. You asked me to illuminate on it, so I just illuminate on it. But now I'm going to take rest, because I have to get up at 2 a.m. and read the Chaitanya Charitamrita with a perfect voice for the audio book. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much. And Oppenheimer, I don't know whether to say Ki Jai or not. Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Pariksit Maharaj Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Okay.